Hello everyone, how are you doing today? I hope that you are having a blessed day. Just wanted to come to you all and just share an opinion that I have, some thoughts. And again, you might not agree with me on this. Some may not. And basically what I'm going to say here is just to rattle the mind, to rattle the thoughts, get us thinking. You know, where is our focus actually on? What are we focusing on? I'm going to tell you all my opinion on my issue with Sunday law updates. Do I believe the Sunday law is going to come? Yes, I most certainly do. I preach it. How soon? We don't know. It could be in a month. It could be years. We don't know. We just have to, we see the signs of the times according to Matthew 24, Luke 21. We read the great controversy and so forth. But more specifically, a lot of us, I feel like a lot of us have been crying wolf, and the wolf is not there. Let me explain a little bit on that. Let me expound on that. What do I mean by this? We like to do Sunday law updates many times. Sabbath afternoons, or maybe in our podcasts and our YouTube channels, or wherever we have a platform, we'll do an episode, Sunday law update, and we'll focus. It's like if many of us have a spying eyeglass on the government, and we look for anything that the government does that we think wrong. Or we'll zone in and look at every single move the Vatican makes, everything that Pope Francis did when he was alive, and everything that this new Pope Leo XIV, everything that he's doing, or so forth, and we just zoom in on that. And sometimes there's some people that their ministries are just all about this stuff. And I'm saying, okay, hold on a second. Are we so focused on the beast that whether we know it or not, consciously or subconsciously, we have begun to wander after the beast by beholding? Maybe we're becoming changed. We're zooming in so much on what the beast does and what these politicians do and what Rome is doing, and we forget that we have to actually teach present truth. What is present truth? Go to Early Writings, page 63. Present truth is not Project 2025. Present truth is not looking at what this president does, or that president did, or this congressman or this senator's doing, or this committee did, or this is what the Pope decreed, that we try to tie it up to a Sunday law when there is nothing in the wording of any of these documents that say to enforce a national day of rest. It's just not there. And we try to make it something just because we find a paragraph that has the name or the word Sunday on it. Boom, we try to tie it in with a Sunday law. We zoom in so much on what these things do. That's not present truth. If it was present truth, Ellen White would have said it was part of present truth in Early Writings, page 63, but she doesn't. What she says present truth is the teaching of our fundamental doctrines, our fundamental beliefs. The 2300 days, the sanctuary, the law of God, the faith of Christ, these things that we know as fundamental beliefs of Adventism, these are the things that are going to establish the faith of the doubting, going to unite the flock. It's going to kick out fanaticism. It's going to punt it out. And some of us aren't doing that. And that is why we're seeing a lot of fanaticism in Adventism right now, because we focus on other things and we call it present truth. It's almost like if and this is basically what we've been doing. We've been looking at MSNBC, at CNN, at Politico, at the New York Times, and all these other mainstream news channel that talk against a politician or administration or a group of political people that we don't really agree with, and we grab their material and we slap a spirit prophecy and Bible verse on it, and that's our present truth sermon on Sabbath or on our podcast. That's not what present truth is. I'm sorry to tell you that. That's not what present truth is. And that's why I believe there's a lot of errors going on amongst God's people. Ellen White specifically says, and I'm going to paraphrase some of these quotes because I don't have it with me right now. I'm driving, but I'll try to, every time when I paraphrase and mention a quote from Ellen White, I'll try to put it on the comment section so you all can read it. Ellen White says specifically that it is a mistake to constantly try to find fault with government. She says that. It is a mistake to constantly find fault with government, and she says that we open ourselves to misunderstanding. Basically, we're making a big deal where she says many times there is none. We try to look for any little wording, any little thing, and try to tie it up to a national Sunday law, and boom, there it is. And we go through all this rhetoric, and we make all these episodes and all these Sunday law updates, when in reality, it's not there. There was a lady, I'll say this example. There was a lady, and again, I'm not trying to downplay anybody's character. Many of these people might be good people. I'm not saying they're bad, but there was this woman who put a post on social media, and I forgot what country was the article talking about, but they were changing the labor laws. They were trying to change the labor laws of that country and give you double the pay or something like that on the weekends. And she was trying to tie it up with a Sunday law. This is going to lead to Sunday law. You know, they're changing the labor laws so then you can get 150% more pay on Sunday should you work on Sunday. I'm saying, okay, what connection does that have with a Sunday law? What does it have to do with the National Sunday Law? It doesn't. It doesn't say anything about worship. Oh, it's going to lead to a National Sunday Law. No, has nothing to do with worship. And this other woman commented on the post, and she says, I think she's from Europe, and she said, hey, we've had such laws. The article, I think, was talking about a country in South America, I think. And this lady who commented on the post, I believe she came from Europe, and she says, hey, we have such labor laws. We've had it over here in my country for the past 20, 30 years. Everybody understands if you work on the weekends, specifically on Sunday, you're getting an extra pay. You're getting extra pay for it. And she says, there's no Sunday law here. So I don't really get your point. I was saying, interesting. So we're trying to make a big deal where there is no big deal. Trying to tie up a Sunday law where there isn't a Sunday law. And many times what I have seen is that many of these preachers, some of them in independent churches, that's a whole other different issue. But many of these preachers and these people that are trying to report Sunday law update, many of them, whether they know it or not, consciously or subconsciously, they lean left-wing. Now, hear me out here, because I used to be left-leaning back when I was younger. And Pew Research has already done the study that most Adventists lean left. Now, watch this. We say we're Adventists, so we're on neutral ground, supposedly. That's what they say. They're not for left or for right. But when you look at most of their videos about Sunday laws in their channel or in their platform, almost everything has to deal about some right-wing politician or some right-wing Republican or some movement or some rhetoric or some word or some saying. They will hardly show anything from the left. So right there, I'm saying, wait a minute, hold on. You say you're not for left or right, but you're always, almost constantly pointing the finger to the right. And I can tell you some things that that the left has done, I could say, that could bring in a national Sunday law. Look what happened 4 or 5 years ago with the pandemic. You know, the left-wing government was cracking down on liberty of conscience, trying to force people to take an injection against their conscience, threatening them with being fired or other penalties and fines. The left-wing government regulated worship. The government tells you how to go to church, when to go to church, when to open, how to conduct your services. Totally unconstitutional. The left-wing government censored freedom of speech, and brought in a whole bunch of other things that were unconstitutional. And yeah, we could make a case on some. And some of these things were reported, but many times they left out the emphasis that it was a left-wing politician, or the Democrats, or this, or the previous left administration, the Biden administration, or whatever. But if the Trump administration or some other Republican person would have done the same thing, it would have been all on their headline video on Trump or this Republican senator or that congressman or this. You know, so much emphasis is placed on the right-wing party, but when the left does something, it's barely reported on, and if it is reported on, they sort of de-escalate who did it or the party that it was from. I can go back further, and I talk a little bit more about things like these in my video on USA in Bible prophecy, America's Beast. I believe I can't remember what number. I think it's number 13 in my series. I'm not sure, but it's on YouTube, and I'll post it on the comments below. I talk about a little bit about these things. And let's go back further. Let's look at Obama. Let's look at what Obama did. Some of you might remember, maybe not. When Obama signed, I believe is the NDAA. And what Obama did there was that I believe it wipes out the amendment of the Constitution that gives you the right to a fair trial and a hearing, as well as the amendment that specifically says that you need a warrant for an arrest and so forth, or to be searched. Well, Obama kind of wiped that out, the Constitution. You know, Ellen White says the Constitution is going to be repudiated. And a lot of these things are being done by left-wing politicians in left-wing administrations, but it's not really reported on, again, because some of these people kind of lean left-wing with their rhetoric. Obama kind of wiped that out with the NDAA signing. And strangely enough, the only one that I remember reporting on this was MSNBC, and you would think that's weird. Rachel Maddow, big left-wing supporter. And she kind of brought it to light. I don't know if Fox or CNN or Politico or New York Times or Washington Post reported on it as well. I'll have to search it out. But really what the NDAA, there's a section there. It's supposed to be, I believe, a bill for the military, for veterans or something, or national defense or something like that. And there's a section there that basically grants the president the right to arrest an individual and detain him without trial, and basically detain him anywhere, any place, without any authorization, just the president sign off on it. Well, that's unconstitutional. You know, that is unconstitutional. I don't see none of these Sunday law update people. I didn't see them report on that. You know, why didn't they report on that? That's a national Sunday law issue. Hey, we are going to be detained for not keeping Sunday. And worshiping on Sabbath. The government is going to persecute Christians, and they're going to detain us. They're going to arrest us. They're going to try to persecute us. They're going to cast us in prison. We're going to be in isolation, and who knows where. Well, hey, that was made possible by President Obama. Again, no one reported on that. But if the Trump administration would have done that, that would have been headline Sunday law update. You see what I'm getting at? Again, some of you may agree or disagree, but this is just to get you thinking. What are we putting our focus on? Again, Ellen White says that it is a mistake. It is wrong to constantly look for any fault in government, because we're going to open ourselves to misunderstanding. And she goes on further. She says a lot of our rhetoric against government officials are going to be used against us, and are going to be reconstructed in a way that was not how the way we meant it to be. And going on further on the thought, we're not supposed, she says it's a mistake to constantly find fault in government. Why? Because she says in another place, light is shining upon the cabinets of kings. And she says in Great Controversy, God has his agents in government. God has his agents in government. And she says light is being shined upon the cabinets of kings. And she says many of these people in politics, many of these people in government, maybe even the president himself, hey, if Nebuchadnezzar was able to convert, who knows? She says many of these people are their minds are being drawn to the Word of God. And the light of God is going to shine upon these people, and they're going to take a stand for the truth, and they're going to side with God's people. And some of God's people, some of us, are going to be tasked with showing the truth to these people in the cabinets of kings and in government. But again, if our rhetoric is always pointing some bad deed about them, about government, if we're always focused on government, if Daniel would have done what some of us are doing, and constantly speak about the things that Nebuchadnezzar was doing. Nebuchadnezzar was a wicked king, a pagan king. Do you think Nebuchadnezzar would have been open to having Daniel come to interpret his dream for him and to learn about the gospel of God? You think Nebuchadnezzar would have been converted if Daniel would have always been looking at the legislation that Nebuchadnezzar has been doing against God's people and calling it out and basically updating the Jewish people? No, Nebuchadnezzar wouldn't have been open to the gospel truth. Yet we think that we can do it and we could convert some people in government with our rhetoric. It's not gonna happen. It's not how the way it works. Now again, I'm not saying we got to turn a blind eye and just ignore everything, but when I see and hear Sunday law update, it's like, okay, here we go again. You're trying to pinpoint something and make a big deal over something that really there is none. There is none. And we're trying to make a connection. Now I know a little bit. We've been saying Sunday law, Sunday law, Sunday law, Sunday law for years, and it's not happening. It's not that I don't believe it's not going to happen. It is going to happen. But we're trying to point to specific events to say that this event is going to cause the national Sunday law, and when that event passes, nothing happens. For instance, there was a strike, some labor unions. There was a union that went on strike, I believe earlier this year, and some people were saying, "Oh, these people are going on strike, and their strike is going to lead to a national Sunday law." Okay, 3 days later, after the strike happened, they reached an agreement with the employers. Where's the Sunday law? I thought you said this was going to allow the Sunday law to take place. There's no national Sunday law, and it's been months since that happened. We've been saying, hey, many people thought that Bush Jr. was going to pass the Sunday law. There was reports that, hey, he's going to establish the new world order that his father predicted. I'm not saying the new world order is not real. It is. It's called globalism. Check out what Trump said against globalism. Again, get you thinking. Watch this. People thought Bush was going to do it, Bush Jr. He didn't do it. Okay, Obama comes in. Some people said, okay, maybe Obama's going to do it. No, Obama didn't do it. Trump's first administration came in, and we were all in. In the Adventist world, a lot of people were all in, especially those in the independent churches. We're all in on this guy is the last Trump. This is the one that Revelation talks about. he's going to pass the National Sunday Law. Trump won the presidency. He got these Christians together, and the Republicans had the House, they had the Senate, and they had the White House. They had all three for three. Everything was set up. Did Trump pass it? No. Biden comes in, and Biden did a lot of things unconstitutional that that we could make a case for National Sunday Law. For instance, I mentioned some of the things during COVID that the administration did. I'll tell you this thing that wasn't reported, and this is key. Again, this is to get us to think. There was the Bishop of St. Louis back in the 19th century, I believe, and he said that Catholicism is going to eventually take over the United States, and it's going to be the main religion, and when that happens, freedom of religion in the United States is going to cease. Some Adventists, especially Adventist evangelists, they'll use that quote. I use that quote a few times, and they'll use that quote to show how the trajectory of America is going towards, Rome and the worship of Rome and the Antichrist and the beast power, and how the Sunday Law, how America's beast, the lamb-like beast, and the dragon beast are slowly coming together. So the Bishop of St. Louis said back in the 19th century that when the Catholics, again, this has nothing, I'm not against Catholics. If you're a Catholic, there's a lot of people I've met that are honest and great, sincere Christian Catholics. I have nothing against what religion you are. It is your constitutional right to worship God however you please. I'm just making this point here. He said, the Catholic bishop said that when Catholics get a majority in the country, religious liberty will cease to exist. And today, I believe 26% of America identify as Protestants and 21% as Catholics, I believe. So Catholics aren't the majority, but they've been making a climb. Now watch what the Biden administration did. You wonder, why did this administration let 10, 15 million illegal immigrants just come to this country without vetting them, without seeing if they have any criminal history or so forth, as it should be, due process. They just let them in. And I'm Spanish, I'm Latino, so I think I know just a little bit of what I'm saying. And some people deny it and say, oh, well, there was no illegal immigration like that happening. If you believe that, then respectfully, I don't really know what planet you're in. But why would this administration let 10, 15 million illegals come into the country? I'm not saying they're bad people. Some of them are. You can't deny that. Some of them are not. But I'm Spanish, and one thing I know about Spanish countries, I've been to Guatemala. My family's from the Dominican Republic. I have a lot of Mexican friends. Most of them good people, great people. And one thing you should know about Spanish countries is that they are over 90% Catholic, probably with the exception of Guatemala. But most Spanish countries are over 90% Catholic. Now, what do you think would change the balance in this country if we let 10, 15 million people come into this country, just walk in illegally? Most of these 10, 15 million illegal immigrants were Latinas, Spanish people, Hispanic, and most of them, I would argue almost 90% of them, are Catholics. Now, what do you think that's going to do with the Catholic balance? Could the words of the Archbishop of St. Louis, were they trying to make that come to pass? I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but just something to get your mind thinking about. But no one reported on that. There was no Sunday Law update on that and how that could bring the Sunday Law. There was none of that. No one really reported much about Biden. Here comes Trump in his second term, and we're all in once again. He's going to do it. Project 2025 is the highlight of everybody, even though there is nothing in that thing. Why don't they report this about Project 2025? In Project 2025, it says that they want to abolish the Federal Reserve. Now, if you know anything about Rome and the Jesuits and all that stuff is that the Federal Reserve is Rome's tool through the Jesuits, through some people connected with the Rothschilds and other elite people that work with the Vatican. The Federal Reserve is Rome's tool with the Jesuits to control the currency in America. And that's what's going to allow the no buying, no selling. Because they've been trying for so hard to institute a central bank. And now that we finally have it, slowly but surely, our currency has been devalued. And they're going to switch, they're trying to switch everything from cash to digital. Everything has to go through the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has tremendous power. Project 2025 seeks to do away with the Federal Reserve. If that happens, then you could basically say it's going to be a big blow to Rome and the Jesuits trying to control the country. But they don't report on that. They don't say that. They don't say that about Project 2025. They just say, oh, Project 2025, they find a place that talks about Sunday, says nothing about day of rest. It just says we want the people not to work on that day. You know, Ellen White says that if the government says not to work on Sunday, obey it. You're not violating the law of God by doing so. It's when the government forces you to worship on that day, that's when we are not to obey. But she clearly says, hey, there were Sunday laws in her day. The whole southern states, most of the southern states, which were controlled by the left, most of the southern states had strict Sunday laws. And by what I have read, there were some Adventists who were threatened with jail time for working on that day. In fact, I just finished reading a page in the Southern Work where she writes, when we go to evangelize the colored people in the South, she wrote this in the 1890s, she says, don't encourage them not to work on Sunday. Don't tell them to work on Sunday. I'm sorry. She said, don't tell them to work on Sunday, because throughout the South, Sunday was viewed as a day of rest. She says, don't get them to violate those Sunday laws, because it's going to arouse prejudice. She says, dedicate Sunday to missionary work. Have church service. And do not let the opponents and enemies of Adventism call you lawbreakers. And as a matter of fact, by you having church services and evangelistic series and missionary work on Sunday, it's going to go to the enemies of Adventism and say, you know what, this is not working. And they might even drop the whole Sunday issue completely. That's what happened in the 1890s. Yeah, we try to say, we want to make a demonstration. Oh, look, they're trying to get us not to work. Well, so what? What's the issue? Don't work. Don't work on Sunday. Dedicate your time to missionary work. Do what the prophet says. She says, make no demonstration of the issue. But yet, sometimes that's what I feel we've been saying. We've been crying wolf and looking at trying to tie things to a Sunday law that really they're not tied. Like I mentioned, the unions. Or how about this? How about this one? This example. Trump is going to attempt to pass a national Sunday law, and because he is a strong union president, the labor unions are strong with President Trump. And Spirit Prophecy says that the labor unions are going to be the ones that are going to be pushing Sunday law to the forefront. Sunday law is going to be, basically brought to big time by these labor unions, and they're going to play a big role, Spirit Prophecy says, in the Sunday law and those movements through the labor unions. And the labor unions are in support of Donald Trump and this administration, the Republicans, the right wing party. They're going to be the ones that are going to bring this Sunday law to the forefront. Sunday law update episode. That's what we'll preach on Sabbath. Did not Joe Biden get the majority of labor union workers vote? Above 55%? Trump ran against Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris got the majority. I believe she got the majority of the union vote. I didn't see no Sunday law update on how the Biden administration is strong with the union and going to attempt in passing this Sunday law. I didn't see no one throw Sunday law update on if the election, if Kamala Harris wins the election with the support of the unions backing her up, that she is going to, through legislation or executive order, attempt to bring religious liberty and liberty of conscience and pass a national Sunday law with the help of the unions. I didn't see none of that. And I doubt that Sunday law update people who do that are going to show stuff like that. So you see where I'm getting the inconsistencies? It could go either way. It could be the left or right. No, we're trying to be like a prophet and predict just one party. Labor Union Party. No, Labor Union Party has always been in the left. They've been receiving the majority of the vote. But again, we won't say that because the majority of us, whether we know it or not, consciously or subconsciously, we're still left-wing leaders. That's just one example. But wait a minute. Wasn't it Joe Biden about maybe 3 months or so after he took over office? Didn't he say, quote, no amendment to the Constitution is absolute? That means it's not guaranteed. None of the amendments of the Constitution, and I bring this up in my USA and Bible prophecy video, how we're going to turn from a lamb-like beast to speaking like a dragon and bow down and make an image of the beast. Joe Biden said our Constitution, the amendments of the Constitution that grant us our unalienable God-given rights and liberties, none of that is absolute, is not guaranteed. They could strip that if they want to at any time, according to President Biden. And one could argue some of his policies reflected that chain of thought. But again, no one made a big Sunday law episode on that. I actually heard when he said that, I heard it in the radio, and I had to fact check that and look it up and see if it was true, and it is. No one made a big Sunday law thing on that. And what I'm seeing is I'm just trying to, get our minds to think and point out a few inconsistencies in these so-called Sunday law updates. Here's a president who says the Constitution is not guaranteed, but will make more Sunday law updates on a president, the current administration, who openly and like almost all the time, he's all for the Constitution. Now, one could make an argument that his policies reflect that chain of thought. Other people beg to differ. Again, I'm not here to argue or say yes, nay, or yay or nay or whatever. I'm just trying to, again, point out some things. We'll make more Sunday law updates on that than compared to the guy who said our Constitution is not obsolete, is not guaranteed. Just inconsistencies there. These so-called Sunday law updates, what are they really about? Is it just our way of becoming a news media outlet against a certain party, and we just using that and slapping a Bible verse and spirit prophecy quote, and we basically become the Adventist version of Fox or the Adventist version of CNN, left-wing, or MSNBC or Politico or so forth, because that is a little bit what it looks like. And there's other examples that I can say. Or I'll give you another example. We'll make a Sunday law update on not long ago when they were doing the election for the Pope. Trump put he posted an AI image of himself dressed as a Pope. And we'll make a Sunday law update on that. Trump trying to bring a national Sunday law, putting himself as king and Pope. Some of us even predicts that the Sunday law will pass within 3 years. If 3 years come and go and Sunday law ain't there, all your credibility is shot. We'll make a Sunday law update on that, even though Trump said, I believe he said when I read the article on the news, that he had nothing to do with it. He posted it, but he didn't create it. Somebody else in his team created the AI image, and he thought it was funny. So in jest, he posted it up there. And I believe there was a group of Catholics that were deeply offended by that jest, that post that was supposed to be a joke. Those are the kind of things I find hilarious. We'll make a Sunday law issue on that, but we won't really talk about the group of young people in colleges that lean left wing. They're very liberal, and they're actively calling for the extermination and the trashing of the Constitution. They want the Constitution to be destroyed. And Ellen White says that in order for Sunday law to pass in this country, in America, the Constitution has to be repudiated. Well, we have a group of young people, a large group of young people, actively protesting to get rid of the Constitution, to destroy it, to trash it. Well, there's a Sunday law update right there. It's actively happening. Most of these same young people are also in our colleges violently protesting, calling for the extermination of a group of people called Israel. They're actively calling for the extermination of Israel. Now again, we know as Adventists that Israel doesn't really hold any special significance, but again, these youth that are calling for the extermination of Israel, they know not what they do, as Jesus says. And this is the point I'm trying to make, is that today they're calling for the extermination of and the elimination of literal Israel, who are a group of people who actually keep the Sabbath on Saturday, God's holy day, according to the commandment. And tomorrow, they'll call for the extermination of spiritual Israel, who keep the Sabbath, God's holy day, on the seventh day, Saturday, according to the commandment. They keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus Christ, and they're Adventists. There's a Sunday law update right there. And maybe it exists. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I skipped through it. I skipped by it. I didn't see it. But to the best of my knowledge, such a Sunday law episode doesn't exist. But we're the first ones, whenever something from the right wing happens, major or minor, we'll report on that. See, the inconsistencies a little bit. We've become more, our Sunday law updates are more like a grand conspiracy theory. Some of the theories are true. I'm not saying they're not. But a lot of it is more like stretching the rubber band and far-reaching. And it's more as a grand conspiracy theory. Something happened. Sunday law is going to happen within 3 years. You watch. That's headline. That's the YouTube title. Sunday law in 3 years. If that doesn't happen, then where's the credibility? And that's why a lot of people are going to view us as just mere alarmists. And then it gets so predictable. Watch this. So my brother and I, we were kind of joking around what's going to be the next kind of Sunday law episode. This preacher always focusing on things of government and trying to bring things out and stuff. That's basically, I always say, if the government and the conference, he's an independent preacher, if the government and the conference were to vanish and not exist, many preachers, especially from the independent side of Adventism, are going to come to the pulpit on Sabbath not knowing what to talk about, because it's like they put a spying eyeglass on just government and just conference and just seeing what is being done wrong, and they just that's their religion, and they forget that of the real present truth that Ellen White talks about. But going forward, it's so predictable, some of these Sunday law updates. My brother and I, we were kind of joking around what's going to be the next update that this preacher is going to say, and we were seeing in the news on how Trump was really beginning to crack down on mass deportations and deport people who broke the law, who were here illegally, and uphold the immigration laws. This is something that Clinton and Obama and everybody, past presidents supported big time. If you're here illegally, you've got to be sent back. And we were saying, I guarantee you, his next update is going to be on how on how he's going to liken how Trump getting these people, riling up these people and deportating them and mass deportations, how that is going to be in connection with Sunday law and persecution of Sabbath keepers. I said, watch. And we said, all right. About a week later, new episode in his YouTube channel on how Trump cracking down mass deportations is going to be connected to Sunday law and persecution of Christians. And we were just kind of laughing. We were just like, wow, like we actually predicted it. The next Sunday law update, basically, as it were. And stuff. I mean, where is the connection is what I'm wondering. Is how is enforcing immigration laws of a nation. I mean, Dominican Republic deports Haitians all the time. And countries around the world deport people who came in illegally, unlawfully. So this is nothing new. And yet we want to make it a Sunday law issue on how a president who's trying to uphold the law and trying to convince people to come in the right way, and how we're going to crack down on mass deportations, especially people who committed crimes, and we're going to send them in droves back to their country. How is that going to eventually lead to a mass deportations of Christians or something? I'm like, look, at this point, I could grab anything that's being done and tie it into some last day event, Sunday law against Sabbath keepers, something. I could grab anything. And at this point, it kind of becomes almost a joke. Like, we were actually able to guess correctly what is the next update going to be. And it's just, and it's sad in a way. It's sad that this is what we hear throughout the week on Sabbath. Is just this. And it kind of has nothing to do with what the Spirit of Prophecy says on what the Sunday law is going to be and how the Bible says the Sunday law is going to be. It's kind of sad. And I understand a little bit now why Ellen White says in Great Controversy that we are going to be viewed as mere alarmists when the Sunday law does come, when the beast does enforce its rule. Because we've been pointing to so many things and crying Sunday law on this, on that, on this, on that, and it doesn't happen. Like I gave the example of the unions and other things, and it doesn't happen. We're trying to say, oh, Trump is going to do it. 2025 is going to be the year of the National Sunday Law. We're almost halfway through the year, maybe a little bit more. And there hasn't been a National Sunday Law since. You got about 6 months. And if there's no National Sunday Law, 2025 is going to pass without a National Sunday Law. And most of y'all's credibility has been shot. Okay, well, 2025 was just the first step. It's gonna happen in the other year, in the next 3 years of this administration. Okay, that's your argument now. How about if the Trump administration passes and there is no Sunday law? What are you gonna say then? Oh, he was setting it up for the next Republican president. He was setting it up for J.D. Vance. How about if J.D. Vance doesn't run and it's somebody else? He was setting it up for another Republican president. How about if the next president is a Democrat? Then what are you going to say? And if the next president is a Republican, that still doesn't prove anything. How about if he doesn't pass it? He might, he may not. What does that do to your credibility? And this is what we try to do. The same thing with Pope Francis when he was alive. Oh, this is going to be the last pope. That was many Adventists. This was the rhetoric. This was in the news, Adventism's news. This is going to be the last pope. He's going to pass the Sunday law. This is going to be it. Get ready. Pope Francis died. What does that do to your credibility? Oh no, now we're regrouping. Here comes an American pope. Here comes an American pope from the lamb-like, the land of the lamb-like beast. His name is Pope Leo, and we'll go thick and thin with the significance of the name and where this pope is from, even though he's from the Spanish. He's a Spanish pope. I think he's Dominican or Haitian or something. He's Latino. And we'll go through all this stuff and try to build up a case. I'm not saying some of that stuff is not true, but we'll build up a whole case, and now we're saying this is going to be the last pope. He's from the United States. He's going to try to rebuild a better connection with America. Okay, some of that might be true, but we're saying this is the last pope. He's going to pass the National Sunday Law. How about if he's not? Same rhetoric was said about Pope Francis, and that nothing happened. Now we're all in on this pope, and he may or he may not. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but we got to be aware. What are we projecting? We're trying to be prophets, and over again, predicting presidents, and none of the presidents did it. Predicting popes, and none of the popes did it. We're trying to be prophets and prophesy things, and it's not coming to pass at the time that we said it would. It's going to come to pass. The Bible says it will, but we're trying to prove a point. We're right. I said the National Sunday Law is going to happen this year, and it happened. Okay, are you ready? Most of them are not. They just want to prove a point. Some are sincere people. Which again, I'm trying to get us to think here. What are we focusing ourselves on? We'll focus so much on Trump and this administration and this right-wing Republican senator, congressman, or whatever. But these people will hardly focus on anything that's done on the other side. Again, there was I believe Democrat Mayor Eric Adams. He said something about how the Bible and his faith helps him through his administration. Paraphrasing that. And some left-wingers are like, oh, he's trying to bring church and state. I didn't see some people in the Adventist world say the rhetoric on Sunday law. Why? Because, it was a left-wing person and doesn't really suit the benefit. But if some right-winger would have said that in government, that would have been title of the next episode. Interesting, they don't report when it comes to this administration. They don't report on how right before COVID 2020, February 5th, the Vatican had a meeting, and in that meeting it was said, again, I have this in my video on Revelation 13 and America's Beast. The Vatican had a meeting on why it was dangerous for Trump to win re-election. Interesting. What were they talking? Why were they talking about U.S. elections at the Vatican? And then, right after that meeting, a couple days later, here comes COVID, changes how the way elections are run in the country, and Trump loses the election. We all know how that went down. Interesting. Nobody paid any attention on that. But I guarantee you, if the Vatican in that meeting would have said, let's try to make Trump win re-election, that would have been headline news. You see, the Vatican is all in. This is going to lead to a Sunday law, and here we go. Again, trying to get us to think here. What are we focusing ourselves on? Again, now I know why Great Controversy says that we're going to be viewed as mere alarmists when the Sunday law does come, because we've been crying wolf and wolf and wolf for this event and for this administration and that administration, and it didn't happen at the time that we said it was. And then when it finally does happen, when the wolf is finally here and we're saying, look, it's here, we've lost our credibility. You know why? Because we've been focusing on an alternative truth, as it were. We haven't been focusing on present truth. And Ellen White says, when you constantly dwell on the faults of government, again, I'm paraphrasing, she says it opens, or something to the effect, it allows misunderstanding. And then we wonder, why is Adventism Why are we having a lot of people leaving the church? A lot of people dealing with some damnable heresies, fanaticism coming into the church. You know why? Because we have left the platform of real present truth. We've left the platform of real present truth, according to early writings, page 63. And we have been dealing with a different type of present truth, which is not the present truth that God, through his prophet in early writings, page 63, tells us to talk about. So again, is the Sunday law going to happen? Yes. I fully believe it is. Is it going to happen because Trump won the election? I'm not going to say that. Is it going to happen because some people went on strike or some mass deportation taking place and this is going to lead to a Sunday law? Come on, give me a break. Come on. Really? Is it going to happen because, this government from a faraway land is telling his people, we'll pay you double to work on Sunday? It's not what the Spirit of Prophecy says. So again, where has our focus been at? When we do these Sunday law updates, and by now some people are, who knows in what 100th, maybe even 1000th episode. And people from the outside world are looking and they're just like, okay, you said that this event is going to bring and is going to cause a domino effect to bring the National Sunday Law, but this event passed and gone, and most of the things that you said was going to happen has not happened. So I don't focus specifically on exact individuals or exact rhetoric or exact events that has taken place. Some of these events are significant. I'm not saying they're not, but we try to make, as it were, all these events significant. And then we become no different than CNN, MSNBC, or some other news outlet, and we, under the guise of Adventism, we'll just try to slap a Bible verse and a Spirit Prophecy quote and make it Adventist. Again, what have we been focusing our time on? What are we always with a magnifying glass and looking at the beast and everything that it does, and looking at the people in government and everything that they do, and just reporting on it and saying, oh, this is going to lead to National Sunday? Or are we actually putting the magnifying glass on the Bible, on Christ and his word and the Spirit of prophecy, and dealing with the things that actually matter, which is the salvation of people through the love of God and the law of God, grace and salvation, and the prophecies and the fundamentals of our faith, real present truth that Ellen White says kicks out fanaticism, unites the flock, and encourages the faith of the doubting. Are we creating more doubt and more fanaticism by reporting something that may not be entirely correct, or are we trying to make people's faith stronger in the Word of God by showing them the real truths in God's Word, by preaching against sin and showing people to the law of God and getting them to confess their sins and looking at Christ as their Savior and seeing the truths in the Word of God? Is that where our focus is at? I hope so. Because by what I have been seeing, many of us are doing Sunday law. Hey, some of us are even saying, when this event happens, Sunday law update, it's over. Sunday law is going to happen. It's going to be over. It's going to be over. They've been saying it's over for years, and so far it hasn't been. And they've been saying it like if some apocalyptic event is going to happen tomorrow. Again, I'm not saying some of these people are bad people. Some of these people might be good people. They might have good intentions. What I'm trying to get us is to think, where has our focus been on? So Some of you might agree with me on this. Some of you might not. And that's okay. But this is where I stand. I don't do Sunday law updates in my platform because I don't want to lead the people astray. I don't want them to get them thinking that, oh, this is going to lead to this thing tomorrow. And it hasn't. It's been 5, 10, 15 years. I just preach the truth in God's word and read the spirit of prophecy and try to enlighten people and preach the real present truth that gets rid of fanaticism and establishes the faith of the doubting. Again, read Early Writings, page 63, and see what she says. So that is my thoughts on the issue. Again, you could agree or disagree. Totally fine, totally okay. I'm just trying to stir up the minds and get ourselves where our focus has been at. Is our focus always reporting on something that some person in government does, and we don't even know? Maybe we're reporting the person in government, and that person in government may be one of the agents that God has, that she talks about, I believe, in Great Controversy, page 610. That's what she says. We open the door for misunderstanding. Again, I'll have that quote in the comments and many others. And what are we focusing ourselves on? So that is my thoughts for today. Sorry for maybe going a little lengthy. I didn't plan to go this long, but when I'm in the car and I'm driving, you have, it's quiet time and you have time to think about a lot of things. And these were one of the burdens that I had in my heart, and just wanted to share an opinion with you and see what's your take on it. So hope you all have a blessed day, and hope God reveals more truth to you. And let's keep each other in prayer. Have a blessed day.